It's official. We have arrived at the swap meet. We're just gonna unload all our stuff from the car. I have my briefcase with all my personal stuff, like my laptop and everything. This is gonna be so much fun. So once we find a spot, we're gonna get all set up. We're gonna take a look at what's here at the swap meet. It's very windy today, so I'm gonna do a little voiceover tour of what we have here. Okay, so this year's swap meet was a lot busier than last year's. So here's an HP similar to the one that I destroyed, as well as some of the other stuff over here. You can see there's some motherboards and some quite unique stuff. Like there's this one, I think that's a 1155 motherboard. You can see there's also most of these vendors had quite unique stuff. And this vendor over here, he had a bunch of stereo equipment, like this sharp metal tape deck. It looked like it would come out of an episode of LGR Thrift. He also had some older HP business laptops, which are pretty cool to mod and upgrade, put Linux on them, if you want, put Windows 11. There's also this table with the Mac Pro, a Dell Optiplex, and all these Apple Cinema displays. I'm not kidding. I love that one especially. Unfortunately, I did not pick it up then. All the way over here, we had some more quite unique stuff. Because this guy right here, he had an iBook G3 that unfortunately he said had a quite sad life. Yes, unfortunately, for 10 bucks you could get that G3. And this guy had some beige boxes as well as one of the older Macs. And then you can see that guy had one of the Shrek laptops. Over here, what is that? A Xeon Phi coprocessor. It looks like it just goes in your regular, your regular expansion slots. This guy also had a Dell Latitude from the 2010s. I think this was like a Sandy Bridge laptop. This was alongside some other 2010s machines. Also, look at this. This guy had a table full of Sun machines. Boy, is the sun bright. And look at this ancient vacuum tube radio. Now over here, this guy had a bunch of voice over IP equipment. And this guy was full of classic laptops and some old expansion cards and hard drives. Yep, that's wonderful. And then that was the Kennett Classic table over there. They're in Philadelphia as a computer museum. Now over here we have one of these older Dell Precisions with, I believe, one of the old Xeons. And then that's a first gen Intel iMac with a dead CPU. That guy had, I believe, some phones and iPod touches, like a 5th gen or a 6th gen. I didn't even remember that. So there's some more vintage ham radio equipment and a ColecoVision. That's quite rare. Now, over here, let's take a look at the famous free pile. Unfortunately, it's a little bit mediocre, but whoa, is that a Macintosh Plus? Who would put that on the free pile? That's insane. There's also the regulars like some monitors, some random software, TVs, scanners, printers, and somebody got rid of a bunch of copies of Quicken for Dummies. And I have no idea if that Macintosh Plus still worked. That was wild, seeing that on the free pile. There's some CRTs, I have no idea if they worked. And unlike last year where I saw basically a ton of old Windows installation CDs on the free pile, there were unfortunately none this year. But now, this vendor had a whole ton of more vintage stereo equipment, look at these old turntables and radios, and he also had a boxed 2007 iMac. Now, this vendor over here had a 2007 Dell XPS, which looked quite cool. I think it was older, some TI graphing calculators and motherboards too. Rise up, math students. That guy had a bunch of random electronics, which looked pretty cool. This guy had, I think, some music stuff. This guy right here, he had a boxed, I believe, 5K iMac, some older ATI Radeon Mac cards, I think an NVIDIA Mac card before the big fallout, as well as some video cassette VHSs. And there's that Retina 5K iMac again. Now, all the way over here, these guys had some, I believe, some Atari 2600s and other unique video game stuff. Also, they had some, I think, random motherboards over there from, I think, some of the earlier 8-bit machines. Now over here, we have some more modern laptops. I saw a Dell XPS over there, some iPad Air 2s, pretty nice. Both are running iOS 15, and unfortunately, they haven't found a way to downgrade them to iOS 8 yet. Now over there, you saw some random stereo equipment. Now, over here, you can see there's been a big variety of stuff today. This guy had a bunch of classic Macs, as well as, I believe, a Power Mac G3. That's again one of the older Macs. And then this WizKid table right here, ooh, sounds fancy. He had a bunch of random electronics here, some old radio tubes. He also had some of these older, I believe, workstations. I saw some BTX Optiplexes in there, some Dell Dimensions, some random monitors. He basically had a little bit of everything, shall we say. A little bit of everything, because most of the vendors are typically that case here. And then this is like where he had a bunch of random other more expansion cards over there. Now, over here, you can see this guy had a bunch of old hard drives and stuff. And he also had this Lenovo W530. I remember seeing that on the spreadsheet. It unfortunately didn't have a good battery. Then there's the famous Black Book. Yes, and this very sad Intel Core 2 Duo iMac. An Apple IIe over here, some older NVIDIA cards, a Sega Genesis. This was actually quite a unique swap meet. And this guy had a whole ton of 2000s and newer office PCs. And some home machines like that compact you saw right there. Quite cool. And boy, did he have a ton of monitors. Now over here, this guy had some other older stuff. Here's some of the older home machines. This guy had a bunch of cases and some IBM PCs and even a sewing machine. This guy over here had a bunch of stereo equipment over here, as well as some other like CDs and stuff. Now this guy right here, he had a HP workstation, some random cables, as well as a monitor and an Apple Thunderbolt display. And then this guy over here, he had an iMac as well as this Dell Optiplex, which is like one of the ones that you would see in like schools at the time. And just like the last swap meet, I got to meet some computer collectors, like here with Action Retro. There were even some tempting items and unique stuff, like this really sad 2008 MacBook, this pile of Apple devices which were all sadly iCloud locked, including an iPad 4 on iOS 7. Also, here's this other bin full of other Apple and mobile devices. There was this 2010 MacBook that had basically all the guts ripped out of it, like the RAM and everything. Then there was this van of, well, just more stuff, everything as well. And it's official. This is the haul from the 2026 VCF East Swap Meet. I scored pretty well, spending only $70 for all this. However, you may be like, that's not that much. Well, let me tell you when I get more into depth. So firstly, here's a 2011 21.5-inch iMac, mid-2011, 4 gigs of RAM, 500 gig hard drive. I plan on upgrading the RAM to 16, adding an SSD, i5-2400S, and a Radeon 6750M. So this is a pretty nice all-in-one computer. The hinge works pretty well. I can't wait to upgrade this because I have a 2008 24-inch, and I actually might plan on using this as my main desktop. Now, the MacBook Pro. If you remember last year's swap meet, I got that one unibody MacBook Pro, a mid-2012 13-inch. However, I got it for $20, and I unfortunately got ripped off big time because the guy didn't even know there was a bad LVDS cable, which is basically the display cable. However, this time, the guy said it works. It has a brand new battery in it. It just needs RAM. So I plan on putting a big fat 2TB SSD in it and some 8 gigs of RAM. So over here, this is the fun stuff. I got some USB-A to USB-A, I believe these are USB 3 cords. So my father needed one for his phone, so I decided just to get them. And I found this on the free pile, the Elgato Turbo.264. So basically what it does is it converts your MP4 videos to iPod format. And speaking of iPod, yes, I have one. This is a 5th gen iPod. It's actually in pretty good condition. It's the 30 gig one. However, it's not just any 5th gen iPod. Because the serial number ends in V9K, it's a 5.5 gen. I got that for $30. Yes, a 5.5 gen for $30. Now, you may be asking, what is this? So this is the stand for a Dell UltraSharp monitor. I have a Dell UltraSharp, a 2408 WFP, however, it never had the original stand. It's using the stand from a far cheaper Dell monitor, which is basically too light for it. So I finally have the actual stand that was meant to go with this monitor now. Finally, last but not least, we have this HP Compact thing. It's a HP Compact 8000 Elite SFF machine. So it has, unfortunately, the Windows 7 Pro key is no longer valid. However, it has a Windows 10 license. This machine has a Pentium E5300 and 4 gigs of RAM. So let's take a look inside. I just loved it. These OEMs are so nice because you just get to crack them open and take a look inside. Let's take a look. I'm just curious, is there a hard drive? No, there is none. So I have a spare hard drive I could easily put in there. Pretty nice, has integrated graphics, RAM, already has RAM. So pretty normal HP machine for the time. I'd say I actually got this for free because my Lenovo ThinkCentre A58 was not selling. So I decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to trade you my Lenovo for this machine. And he was like, okay, here it is. Take it. It's yours. So you know what? We're just going to move all this stuff up to my bedroom and we're going to give it some testing. And I will see you up there. Well, after last year's unfortunate disaster with the swap meet, you can guess what I want to test first. The MacBook Pro. So as you can see, this thing has a brand new battery in it. I'm not sure from when it's from, but it is an aftermarket battery. It's just missing the hard drive and RAM. However, it has the Wi-Fi card and everything else. And it's also missing the case screws as well. So, you know what? We're just going to pop in some DDR3 from the era. Okay, we got the RAM in there. Everything's ready to go. So, hopefully, if we crack her open, she should fire right up without any of these without the crazy purple screen of last year. So, here it is. I have my MagSafe 1 charger. We're just going to unwind it and fire her right up. I see a light. Let's press the power button. Time for the moment of truth. Do we get a bong? Okay, so the battery, unfortunately, is quite dead. So we're going to give this some time to have, well, a nice juice up. So while we wait for it to juice up, let's take a look at some of the other machines that we have here. And you know what's next? The iMac. I do know, as far as I know, this thing is working. So here it is. And it's so big, we do need to use the wide angle lens, which is important. So let's just hook this thing up and test it. And you won't believe it, off camera, while I was setting up the iMac, we got the blinking question mark on the MacBook Pro. Isn't this awesome? So we're just going to shut it down for now, and then this thing is going to get its own full restoration on its own. So we're just going to disconnect MagSafe and get the iMac set up. We got the iMac all set up, ready to go. So you know what that means? We're going to plug in the power cord. Okay, let's hold down the power button. See if we got a bong. Okay, so we're just going to hold down the... Oh, I hear the optical drive. And that is one loud bong. We got a working iMac. Isn't that awesome? I believe this is running, I think, High Sierra. So it does have, unfortunately, a spinning disc, sadly. Unfortunately. So we are going to put an SSD in this, a 256 SSD and 16 gigs of RAM. So that's our main plan for this machine. Okay, so for the HP, we have the hard drive spinning up, got the optical drive ready to go. Let's push that power button, and the good news is, I think it is going to go to the splash screen. Whoops, accidentally bumped the camera. Okay, so there's the HP logo. So my guess is it just says, yup, non-system disk or disk error. So that does prove my hypothesis correct. There's no hard drive inside this thing, but at least it works. So let's just try going into the BIOS. Okay, so let's just take a look at the BIOS system information. So we have a Pentium E5300 at 2.6 gigahertz. I have a Quattro Duo E7200 that we could put in here and upgrade it. We have 4 gigs of DDR3, 2 gigs. So that's pretty nice. And again, let's take a look at storage. And then obviously there is no storage in this thing. So that's pretty normal. So let's just shut down. So at least we have 3 working machines. What's left is the iPod. Was this a good swap meet? Absolutely. Look at everything that we got. We got the MacBook, we got the iMac, we got the HP, we got this iPod, and then, although that's my charger, we also have the Elgato, which could be an interesting kind of like an LG Oddware style video. And we obviously got these 2 cords. So overall, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like, watch, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, y'all.